Good morning. Today we shall talk about the basal nuclei, also known as the corpus striatum. Okay. Now, what are they? The corpus striatum are masses of grey matter with distinct shapes. Okay. And where are they situated? They are situated at the base of the brain in the subcortical region. Why are they present? So, what do? They modulate the activity of the motor cortex and they regulate the movements through some feedback loops. Alright, so now we know the function. Now let us see. If you see, this is the lateral aspect of the cerebrum and this is the cerebellum and this is the subcortical region. This is the primary motor area and the premotor and the frontal area. Now if I take off this is what we see, the lateral aspect. This is the lentiform nucleus and the caudate nucleus. Okay. So caudate nucleus displays a head, a body and a tail, and at the tail it displays a swelling which is known as the amygdala. We shall just talk a little bit about the amygdala and be done with it. This amygdala belongs to the oldest system and it is associated with the limbic system. So that's that there is to it. We are only going to talk about the motor activity of the corpus striatum. Now, when we talk about it, let us see a little bit of the nomenclature that we shall encounter. Caudate nucleus, I had told you that these grey masses will show some shapes. So this caudate nucleus is arch-shaped or shaped like a comma. And when you see downstairs, when you go into the dissection hall, you will see that it follows the contours of the lateral ventricle. Okay? And this caudate nucleus is now continuous here with what is known as the putamen. Okay? So this lentiform nucleus, if you see over here, how is lentiform nucleus formed? It is formed by the globus pallidus and the putamen. And we cannot see the globus pallidus over here. Where can we see the globus pallidus? We can see the globus pallidus only in a coronal section. Alright? So, globus pallidus plus putamen form the lentiform nucleus and caudate nucleus plus the putamen form the striatum, which is known as a neostriatum. For all practical purposes, the caudate nucleus and the putamen are functionally related and the globus pallidus is separate. Okay? Now, the globus pallidus is so named, it appears pale. Why does it appear pale? Because it consists of large multipolar neurons and heavily myelinated fibers. And it is a myelin which reflects light, therefore it appears pale. Now, do you notice another feature over here? These are the fibers which are coming from the cerebral cortex, from all the lobes of the cerebral cortex, and they're traversing over here where they condense to form the internal capsule. And this internal capsule is going downstairs as the crus cerebri. Alright? Now let us have a look at the coronal section. So this gives you the orientation. In this coronal section, this is the anterior pole, this is the posterior pole. The nuclei that I need over here are the caudate nucleus, the thalamus, the putamen, the globus pallidus exterior and the interior, externum and the internum, and this is the internal capsule. Now you will notice two more structures over here. Just beneath the thalamus is the subthalamic nucleus, which I will need for the connections, and this is the substantia nigra belonging to the midbrain. So after having done the structure, let us see what are the connections. As we know, it is going to modulate motor activity. So what are the connections? The afferents, one thing that you have to remember is that the afferents will come to the striatum. And what is the striatum? Striatum is caudate nucleus plus putamen. Alright? So all the afferents are coming to the striatum. They are coming from the cortex. They are coming from the thalamus. And they are coming from the substantia nigra. So we have the corticostriate, the thalamostriate and the nigrostriate input. Alright. Now this input from the striatum is going to come to the globus pallidus. So the afferents to the globus pallidus is going to be the outflow from the striatum. Clear about this? the globus pallidus, now the efferents are going to go to the thalamus, to the substantia nigra, and to the subthalamic nucleus. Remember, we had talked about all this over here. Now let us see how do they function. Now a word about the thalamus. Now in the thalamus over here, there is the ventro-anterior and the ventro-intermediate nuclei. Okay, so they are coming to the ventro-anterior and the ventro-intermediate nuclei. If you remember, the cerebellum is also sending its input to these particular nuclei. And what is going to happen over here at the level of the corpus striatum? It is the motor activity which is going to be monitored. So the input from the cerebellum and the input from the striatum is going to be computed, collated and balanced over here, and only then it will go to the motor cortex. Clear about this? Alright. So these are the connections. After the connections, we talk about the functions. One is programming of voluntary movements. Second is regulation of automatic movements. And third is regulation of muscle tone. All of you know that midway in my lecture, I always go to pick up the tumbler of water. Okay, so I always go and drink the water. So now what happens? I want to make a movement. So when I want to make a movement, which part of my brain is thinking? It is going to be the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe has thought that I need to drink water. So this input is going to go into the motor area, and from there, now this cortex, the cerebral cortex in the evolution has developed after corpus striatum. So the cerebral cortex is therefore younger to the corpus striatum, so that is phylogenetically older to it, so it will pay its due respect to it. It will always consult the basal ganglia, and the programs for motor movements are situated inside the basal ganglia or the corpus striatum. Okay, so now this will go and ask that I want to do this particular movement. Let's now talk about the circuitry. Now this is what is known as the direct pathway, and there is another pathway which is the indirect pathway. Let us talk about the direct pathway first. Now for this what all we need is the motor cortex, the striatum, the globus pallidus internum and the thalamus. Okay. Now normally when there is no motor activity, what is happening is that the globus pallidus internum is firing away to keep the thalamus under check. Okay. Now remember one thing, that the neurotransmitter which issues from the striatum and the globus pallidus is the GABA, which is the inhibitory neurotransmitter. Now when this GABA is acting on the thalamus is kept under check, and this cannot convey any message to the motor cortex. Now when a movement has to start, what happens is that there is a glutaminergic fiber which is coming to the striatum, and from the striatum, now what the striatum will do, it will give GABA. What does it have to do? It has to inhibit the globus pallidus internum. Okay, so this GABA will inhibit the globus pallidus internum, which in turn, now what will happen to this? There will be disinhibition of the thalamus. The thalamus which was inhibited before will get disinhibited now, and from here this loop will be completed, going back to the motor cortex, releasing the glutamate. So this is what is going to bring about a movement. Now a word about the D1 receptor here for the direct pathway and the D2 receptor for the indirect pathway. Here this is being acted by the substantia nigra compacta, and this is acting on the D1 receptor by way of dopamine. Okay, so this, what is it doing? It is going to be modulatory to the direct pathway. So it is going to cause stimulation over here, and dopamine on the indirect pathway is going to be inhibitory, and we need all kinds of movements. So Therefore, in the direct pathway, we have glutamate releasing onto the striatum and the striatum firing away GABA on the globus pallidus internum. The globus pallidus internum getting inhibited by this GABA from the striatum, and the leash on the thalamus is released. There is disinhibition of the thalamus so that there is again release of glutamate to the motor cortex, and from here this motor cortex is going to act onto the corticospinal fibers and bring about the motor activity. That is the direct pathway. Now in the indirect pathway, what happens is there is a small detour which is taken from the globus pallidus externus. Here it was coming from the striatum to the globus pallidus internum. Now here from the striatum it is coming through the externus, going to the subthalamic nucleus, and from there looping back to the internus. Now what do we want over here? We want inhibition. We do not want any movement. So therefore, if we want inhibition, we want the globus pallidus internum to be activated and release GABA. So when it releases GABA on the thalamus is going to become inactive and it will not fire any glutamate onto the motor cortex. Clear about this? And what is the role of dopamine over here? Dopamine is going to act on the D2 receptors, and this is going to inhibit the indirect pathway. In is inhibitory. Okay, so indirect pathway is going to inhibit movement, direct pathway is going to stimulate movement. And what is the role actually of the substantia nigra over here? It is going to kickstart the movement. When we say kickstart the movement, it means it is going to initiate the movement. And we will talk about it when we talk about Parkinsonism. So this is the direct pathway and this is the indirect pathway. Now the blood supply to the striatum comes from striate branches of the cerebral arteries traversing through the perforated substance. What are the disorders? Now the disorders have to do with the movements only. So either these movements will be hypokinetic or hyperkinetic. In hypokinetic, there may be akinesia, bradykinesia and tremors, and the best example is that of the Parkinson's disease, in which there are tremors, there is rigidity, there is akinesia and postural instability. So you will see this particular patient having pale rolling tremors and having a stooped posture, cannot initiate any movement, so there is rigidity and akinesia. Now we come to the hyperkinetic, where there is hypotonia and associated movements which are known as dyskinesia. They can be either athetosis, chorea or balismus. Now balismus are very hyperkinetic movements. They are ballistic, very violent movements, and the seat over here, the seat of activity is the subthalamic nucleus. So there may be a stroke lesion and the blood supply goes, and that is going to manifest as balismus. Then we talk of athetosis. In athetosis, they are going to be writhing, sinuous movements, and you heard of the Saint Vitus dance. Then we talk of chorea. Chorea, two things I am going to tell you. One which is going to manifest during childhood, following rheumatic fever. That is what is known as Sydenham's chorea, and these are going to be very jerky, flicking kind of movements. And one is Huntington's chorea, which is an autosomal disease manifesting in the adult life, and that is because of multiplication of the Huntington protein on chromosome 4. So that will lead to a lot of apoptosis in the basal ganglia. Okay, so this is about the disorders. This is in brief about the corpus striatum. Now when you see a patient showing either of these movements, or you are able to diagnose a patient of Parkinson's disease, what is your role as a doctor? First and foremost, you have to know the anatomical basis, then you have to know the functional anatomy, and then you have to see this particular patient as a person and how you can rehabilitate him in his social setting. Okay? Stay blessed, stay happy, stay safe. Bye for now.